Hi, it's Ashleigh from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and a huge happy Thanksgiving weekend to all of my fellow Canadians. Down in the description box below, I will put all the links to my tutorials for my sugar cookies that I'm using today, as well as my royal icing recipe, as well as my flooding and piping consistency, which is what I am using on this pumpkin. This pumpkin is actually quite large. I would say it's almost the size of my whole hand. I love making large cookies like this because you can really add a ton of detail to it. When I first started making cookies, I would often outline, let it dry, and then flood, but now I've changed my ways so I get that nice puffy icing, so I flood it right away after I fill it in. I'm gonna let those layers dry first and move along to my next cookie, which is my pumpkin spice latte here. Now really this could be any drink that you want it to be. If you wanted it to be a hot chocolate, then you're going to drizzle it with something else on top. Now I'm continuing on with my flooding and piping consistency in white. Now you'll notice here that there's actually quite a few bubbles on here. If I was being really picky, I would go back and I would pop all those bubbles, but I do know I'm going to be adding more detail on it, which is why I don't really seem to pay that much attention to it. Now that those previous portions of my pumpkin have dried, I'm going back in, I'm filling in those other sections. The reason that I do it this way is so that I can get those nice defined edges without having to overline again, which is what I used to do, and I actually just don't like the quality of the way that looks. Once the white on those latte cups fully dry, I'm adding in this next section here. You can really make this any color that you want, but in keeping with the PSL tone as well as the fall colors, I decided to go with a beige. To get this color, I did a few drops of AmeriColor chocolate brown, not warm brown because that gives it a pinky tone, and a little bit of yellow. Once you finish filling all of those in and it's nice and dry, you can go ahead and start filling in the whipped cream. And just like we did with the pumpkin, you want to make sure that you're filling this in sections so you keep that definition. You could also do the whipped cream on top by actually piping it with a star tip. Of course, you would need a much thicker icing. Whenever I want to thicken up my icing so I can do things like pipe something with a star tip or pipe something with a different type of tip, I generally add more meringue powder to my royal icing, and I also add a slight amount of icing sugar as well. And go ahead and quickly add on that little stem portion. I apologize for hopping back and forth between the cookies, but I really wanted to show you my real process of the order that I do things in. Cookie decorating is such a process where you really do need to plan out what you're going to do before you actually do it so that you can do everything efficiently and effectively. There you saw I just made some really simple flowers by squeezing my piping bag and dragging it forward and then adding a little pearl in the center. Now I'm adding on my little caramel drips, and I'm just doing that with the exact same beige color that I used before for that little front portion on the cup. To make sure that everything looks cohesive, I'm adding on those little simple flowers onto my pumpkin as well. And some golden pearls to really brighten this up. I'm going to use my white piping icing here. Now this is different from my piping and flooding icing. This is quite thick so that it won't run together. And I'm just writing give, and I make sure that the bottom is nice and straight. My trick for getting that nice and straight is making sure that I align all of my letters to whatever I did with my first letter. So if my first letter goes down that low, then all the rest of my letters have to go down that low as well. With this thanks portion here, it's a little bit more free, and actually script can be easier sometimes to write. You can see with this portion here that anytime I want a thicker line, what I'm actually doing is I'm squeezing that piping bag just a little bit harder. You saw there as well how I went over a spot more than once. You can do this with script. It's harder to do this with printing. I am running out of this beautiful gold luster dust, so that's why you can see things are a little bit more see-through, but it still looks very, very beautiful. And I'm just placing this on the top. Now, if I wanted to be really smart about this, I probably should have done that portion first. Just like I should have splattered these with gold paint before I actually put on the label or any other detailing. But I actually decided on this gold paint splatter after I had done the whole thing. Just seemed like it was missing something. Same thing with my airbrushing here as well. And I am directing this little bit of golden airbrush. I know it doesn't look very gold, but it is on the edges of that label. I made a whole bunch of fall themed cookies that I'm going to be showing you throughout the week, but I think this is one of my favorites for sure. I also forgot to mention and show you that I airbrushed the pumpkin as well, so I just wanted to put that out there. Now let's get into the pricing guide. These are fairly basic cookies and my cookies start around $4, but there is a lot of script and other things on this as well, so that's why the pricing is a little bit higher. If I were selling these as a stock item, they would obviously be cheaper since I would be making them in bulk and with no specificity. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading daily, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!